Welcome to Life Stories. Imagine being invisible your entire life, treated like you don't belong, as if your very existence doesn't matter. Now imagine the moment you find out you've inherited everything: the empire, the power, the legacy of the very family that once looked down on you. It's a twist that will change everything. For Maya, a 17-year-old girl with nothing but determination and a dream, this moment is only the beginning. But as the truth unravels, she faces a choice that will determine not just her future, but the future of everyone who's ever been overlooked, underestimated, or oppressed. The path she chooses will shake the foundation of an empire built on arrogance and greed. Will she transform the system, or will it destroy her in the process? Stay with us, because this is a story of power, betrayal, and the fight for what's right. Now let's dive into the journey. Maya stood at the threshold of the grand lawyer's office, feeling like a stranger in a world that had never invited her. She was 17, her natural curls framing her dark skin like a crown that she had been told time and time again was undeserving of anything beyond menial labor. In the eyes of the Almeida family, Maya was nothing but the daughter of a maid, an invisible presence meant to serve, not to be seen. As she stepped inside, the air grew colder, the sharp scent of expensive perfume clashing with the faintest trace of disinfectant that clung to her clothes. The room was filled with the sharp clinking of champagne flutes and murmurs of disdain. The Wrights, what was left of them, were gathered for Samuel Wright's will reading. Maya's heart hammered as their eyes followed her every move, their gaze like daggers aimed at her presence in a room where she didn't belong. Victor Wright, his designer suit as sharp as his attitude, was the first to speak. "Who let the help in?" His voice was a smooth sneer, dripping with disdain. He glanced at his family, their laughter following his words like a slow, deliberate burn. Maya's chest tightened, the humiliation sinking in, but she held herself still, refusing to show how much their words stung. This was just another moment in her life that she had learned to endure, another test of her will. The lawyer, Enrique Garcia, had already gestured for her to take the lone empty seat, positioned as far from the family as possible. The Wrights were too busy whispering, too busy glaring, to notice the slight smile that curled on her lips. For years, she had been invisible to them. They had ignored her, mocked her, treated her as though she was beneath them. But none of them knew the secret that Samuel Wright had discovered in his final months. A secret that would shake the very foundation of their family. They wouldn't know it until the will was read. They wouldn't know that everything they had spent their lives building, all the power they thought they wielded, was about to slip through their fingers like sand. Maya shifted in her seat, trying to ignore the weight of the room pressing down on her. Samuel Wright had watched the way they treated people, employees, cleaners, drivers, people like her, people who had worked in his house, in his empire, without ever being truly seen. What Maya didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Samuel had been watching her, studying her from afar, and had come to see something in her that the Wright family was blind to: her heart, her integrity, her quiet strength. "Are we ready to begin?" Garcia's voice cut through the tension, calm and collected. As he started reading the formal words, Maya's mind wandered back to the last few months she had spent with Samuel. She had been working for him, serving him and his family, while balancing her studies and the care of her sick mother, Donna Celeste. Yet Samuel had seen beyond her duties. He had seen her, truly seen her. "Before we continue, I have a video to show," Garcia announced, and a hush fell over the room. The screen flickered to life, and the image of Samuel Wright, aged and frail from illness, appeared. His once sharp eyes, now clouded with the weight of cancer, locked onto the camera, but there was still a fire in them, an unmistakable glint of defiance. "If you are watching this," Samuel began, his voice steady despite his condition, "then I have passed. But before you learn how I've divided my estate, I have one question for all of you. Can any of you tell me the name of Donna Celeste's daughter?" The room fell silent. The Wrights, once so confident in their power, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Ricardo Wright, the eldest son and the one who ran the family business, cleared his throat. "What's this all about?" he asked, his voice cracking with impatience. "I see none of you know her name," Samuel continued, a sad smile flickering across his face. "That girl has worked in our house for years, helping her mother, doing everything you all refused to notice. What? And none of you bothered to learn her name." Maya's heart ached as Samuel's words filled the room. They were cruel, but they weren't wrong. The Wrights had treated her like nothing more than a shadow, an invisible servant whose worth was measured only in what she could do for them. But Samuel wasn't finished. He went on to describe the terrible way his family had treated Maya, how Ricardo had humiliated her in front of others, how Christina had cut her salary when she needed it most, how Victor had ridiculed her for the simplest mistakes. And then, the most shocking revelation of all, Samuel had been speaking with Maya in secret for months. He had learned about her dreams, her determination to become a lawyer, and how she had fought to take care of her mother while studying at night. "The truth is," Samuel's voice echoed, "Maya is not just the daughter of a maid. She is a young woman of extraordinary character who has been overlooked and dismissed by a family who thinks the world revolves around them." Maya sat there, her eyes fixed on the lawyer, her posture straight despite the heavy weight of the room's hostility. This was her moment. Her story was no longer going to be hidden. It was time for the Wrights to understand the truth. "I know what you're all thinking," Samuel's voice continued, his words chilling in their finality. "You think I'm giving her a small fortune, a pittance, but I'm giving her something far more valuable, an inheritance of justice." The room erupted in disbelief, but Maya was calm. She had prepared for this moment. She had prepared for the fight ahead. What if the very people who humiliated Maya were the ones who would be changed by her actions? Do you think the Wright family will learn from their mistakes, or will they continue their toxic legacy? As the video ended, Maya stood up, her voice clear and unwavering. "This empire you think you own," she said, "was built on the backs of people like me, people you've never seen, people you've ignored, and now it's mine." The silence that followed was deafening. Maya's words hung in the air like a heavy storm cloud, ready to break, but she wasn't finished yet. "The real revolution starts now," she said, her eyes scanning the stunned faces in front of her. "This empire is no longer about power. It's about giving people what they deserve. It's about fairness, and it starts with me." The twist was only beginning. The battle for justice wasn't about taking revenge. It was about transforming everything they thought they knew. Maya was no longer the invisible servant. She was the storm that would change the course of their lives. Stay tuned for the next chapter, where Maya's battle will unfold in ways they never saw coming. Maya sat in her new office, the walls still bare, the air heavy with the weight of her recent decisions. Outside, the world seemed to spin normally, but inside her, everything had changed. The wind howled outside the tall glass windows, but in the silence of the room, Maya could feel the storm inside her heart, a storm that had been brewing for years. Her fingers hovered over the papers in front of her, official documents, plans, projections. She was in control now, the majority shareholder of Wright Enterprises, but the truth was, she felt like a fraud. She didn't belong here. The glittering offices, the sterile white floors, the power that pulsed in every corner of this building, it all felt foreign to her. Every decision, every move she made was scrutinized by people who had been born into this world, people who could never understand the hunger that burned inside her. Her thoughts drifted back to the reading of the will. The words Samuel Wright had spoken echoed in her mind. "You are the heir, Maya, not because of what you've inherited, but because of what you've earned." He had seen something in her, something she wasn't sure she saw in herself. Was it the right thing to do? Was she truly ready for this responsibility? The phone rang, pulling her from her reverie. "Miss Maya," Garcia's calm voice cut through the silence. "There's a situation. I think you need to come down here." Her stomach turned. Another problem, another reminder that she wasn't ready for this. She had expected the pushback from the family, the legal challenges, the media frenzy. But something about Garcia's tone made her anxious. "I'll be right there," Maya replied, her voice betraying the uncertainty she felt. When she arrived at the boardroom, she was met with a scene she hadn't anticipated. Ricardo stood at the head of the table, his face red with fury, his fists clenched. Christina was beside him, arms crossed, her lips curled in disgust. Victor, on the other hand, wore a smug expression as though he already knew the outcome of whatever was unfolding. "What's going on?" Maya asked, her voice cool despite the turmoil inside. Garcia looked between them and then back at Maya, his expression unreadable. "It's the employees," he said. "They're pushing back on the changes you're implementing. They don't want the compensation packages. They want more. They want ownership. They want a voice in how the company runs." Maya blinked, surprised by the strength of their response. She had expected resistance from the Wright family, but not from the very people she was trying to help. She had thought that giving them back what had been stolen would be enough, would prove to them that change was possible. But now she realized that this wasn't just about the money. It was about power. "You're telling me," Maya started slowly, "that the people I've been fighting for, they want control over the company?" "Yes," Garcia said. "They want a seat at the table. They want to be partners, not just employees." Maya felt a cold wave of dread wash over her. This wasn't the plan. She had worked so hard to bring about this change, but now it felt like everything was slipping away from her. "This is your fault," Victor sneered, pointing an accusatory finger at her. "You think you can just come in and change everything and expect everyone to follow? You don't know how to run a business. You're nothing more than a pawn in a sick game. And now look at what you've done." Maya flinched at the venom in his voice, but she stood her ground. "You think this is about the company?" she asked, her voice trembling with quiet anger. "This is about people. This is about justice. I'm not here to build an empire. I'm here to give people a chance you never gave them." Ricardo slammed his fist on the table, causing everyone to jump. "You think they'll thank you for this? You think they'll respect you? You've given them an inch, and now they want everything. And what about the company? What about your future? What about your legacy?" The words stung more than Maya cared to admit. Was she doing the right thing? Had she been too quick to assume that her vision of fairness would be enough? The questions rattled in her mind, but there was something deeper gnawing at her, a fear she hadn't fully acknowledged until now. "Everything I've done," Maya whispered, more to herself than anyone else, "has been for the right reasons. But what if it's not enough? What if I'm just setting myself up for failure? What if I'm not ready for this?" A silence fell over the room, thick with tension, before Garcia spoke again. "You're not alone in this, Maya. You have allies, but the road ahead will be harder than you think. People don't change overnight, and the system is designed to keep things the way they are." Maya's mind raced, trying to process everything. She had fought so hard to get here, to make things right, to prove to the world that someone like her could make a difference. But now she realized the fight was far from over. She had to decide if she would follow through with her vision of a fairer world, or if she would give in to the pressure and let the system consume her like it had consumed the Wright family for generations. The room seemed to close in around her, the weight of the choices ahead threatening to crush her resolve. And then it hit her. What if the real fight wasn't just about changing the company or the people within it? What if it was about changing herself? "Do you want to know the truth?" Maya asked, her voice steady now, more determined than ever. "I'm not here to tear everything down. I'm here to build something better. Something that doesn't just help people get by, but helps them thrive. And if that means risking everything I've worked for, then so be it." Victor's face darkened as he opened his mouth to retort, but Maya raised a hand to silence him. "No more talking. You've had your say. Now it's my turn." How do you think Maya will navigate the unexpected demands from the employees? Will she give them power or fight to retain control of the company? The decision lay in her hands, But Maya knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to back down. But what would it cost her? What would it take to transform the very system that had oppressed so many for so long? The answers were still out there, waiting to be discovered, and Maya was ready to face them head on. As she turned to leave the boardroom, a sense of finality settled in her chest. She wasn't just fighting for her future anymore. She was fighting for a future that would change everything for everyone, and the stakes had never been higher. But the road ahead would be fraught with obstacles, and Maya could only wonder. Would she be able to hold on to her vision when the forces around her pushed harder than ever? To find out, don't miss the next chapter. Maya's journey has only just begun, and the biggest challenge is yet to come. Maya sat at her desk, the weight of the decisions she had made pressing down on her chest. The glass walls of her office offered a sweeping view of the city, the lights twinkling like 1,000 dreams. It should have felt like victory. She had fought for justice, for fairness, for everything she had been denied. And yet, in the stillness of the night, she couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that clung to her heart. The boardroom had been a battlefield. The employees had won their seats at the table, but now the true challenge had begun. She had promised them change, but the reality was more complicated than she had anticipated. Every day, new complications arose. The media questioned her ability to lead. The rights, though silenced for now, were still scheming behind the scenes. And all the while, Maya felt the weight of her mother's illness bearing down on her. Donna Celeste had been in remission for months now, but the road to recovery was long. Maya spent every free moment with her, but even that time felt fleeting. Every day, she juggled the demands of running a multi-million-dollar company with the tender care her mother needed. She was stretched thin, and sometimes, late at night, when the office was empty and the world was silent, she wondered if she was strong enough to carry it all. It wasn't the pressure from her new role that terrified her. It was the constant fear that, no matter how hard she tried, she would still be invisible, that her worth would never be enough. It had been ingrained in her for so long, a black teenager, the daughter of a maid, someone who was never meant to sit at the table of power. Yet here she was, the owner of an empire, a young woman fighting to rewrite the rules. But even power, as she had learned, was not enough to erase the past. One afternoon, as Maya walked through the newly renovated halls of the headquarters, she was greeted by familiar faces, employees who had been rehired, managers who now had the chance to contribute in ways they had never been allowed to before. The company was changing. But was it enough? Maya stopped in front of a large photograph that hung in the lobby, a picture of the Wright family in all their wealth and arrogance. It was a reminder of how far she had come, but also of everything she had lost. The picture, though now irrelevant in her eyes, still symbolized the world she had spent so long fighting against. "Miss Maya?" A voice broke her thoughts, and she turned to see Garcia standing nearby, his face somber. "Is everything all right?" she asked, her voice tight with concern. "We've received another legal challenge," Garcia said quietly, handing her a stack of papers. "It's from the Wrights. They're contesting the changes you've made to the company's structure. They're not giving up." Maya's breath caught in her throat. She had known this day would come. She had expected them to fight, to claw at her, to take back everything she had taken from them. But she hadn't expected it to hurt so much. "They won't stop, will they?" Maya asked, her voice barely a whisper. The exhaustion in her eyes was clear, but Garcia nodded. "No," he replied. "But you don't have to face this alone." Maya closed her eyes for a moment, collecting her thoughts. The weight of the world seemed to crash down on her all at once. She had wanted to change everything, to build something better, to show the world that people like her, people who had been invisible for so long, deserved more. But the fight had taken its toll. And now, in the quiet of this office, surrounded by the empire she had inherited, she felt the crushing reality of what it meant to be at the top. "I'm tired, Garcia," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm so tired of fighting. Fighting them, fighting the system, fighting for something that sometimes feels so far away. I've given everything. I've changed so much. But what if it's not enough? What if I can't make them understand? Garcia stepped closer, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. You're already doing it, Maya. You've made them listen. And even if they never understand, you've already changed their world. You've changed the world for the people who never had a voice. Maya looked at him, the tears she had been holding back threatening to spill. She had never wanted revenge. She had only wanted to build a legacy of fairness. But in this moment, she wondered if it had all been worth it. Was it worth the sacrifice? Was it worth the pain? Her mind wandered back to the moment when Samuel Wright had called her his heir. The weight of that title had felt foreign to her, like something she didn't deserve. But now it felt like the heaviest burden of all. The Wrights would never stop fighting her. The pressure of the company, the media, her mother's health, it all pressed down on her like a stone, threatening to crush her spirit. But then, in the silence that followed Garcia's words, something shifted inside Maya. She had come this far, hadn't she? She had fought for so long, endured so much. She couldn't let it all slip away now. She couldn't let the Wrights win. She couldn't let this empire, the one she had worked so hard to build, fall back into the hands of those who would only use it to hurt others. No. This was her fight, and she was ready to finish it. I won't give up, Maya whispered, more to herself than to Garcia. I can't give up. Not now. Not after everything. Garcia smiled, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. You never were the type to give up. Maya took a deep breath, straightening her posture. She had a lot to do. There were meetings to attend, challenges to face, and enemies to confront. But in that moment, for the first time in a long time, she felt something else, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in months. Peace. Because this was her destiny. This was her fight, and she would finish it. Not for revenge, but for the future she had always dreamed of. What do you think Maya's journey will look like now that she has found the strength to continue? Do you believe she will be able to overcome the challenges ahead? Maya's story has only just begun, and the future she's building will shape not only the company, but the very world around her. As she takes the next step, one thing is certain: the greatest battles are still ahead. Don't miss the final chapter of this remarkable story. Where are you watching from? What are your thoughts on Maya's journey? If you enjoyed this story, leave a 100 in the comments and share this video with your friends. Thank you for watching Life Stories.